Captain Mason Reed stepped off the shuttle onto the soft, glowing ground of Valari Prime. It was his first visit to an alien world as Earth's representative. His mission was simple: attend a peaceful diplomatic event and smile for the cameras. The sky above him was a smooth shade of lavender. Strange birds with silver feathers flew overhead, singing songs that echoed like bells. Valari Prime was known for its peace, technology, and deep traditions. Mason had read every document Earth Command gave him. He memorized rules, customs, and hand gestures. But nobody warned him about the fountain. As Mason walked through the royal gardens, large, beautiful, and filled with tall, glowing plants, he looked for the Emperor's welcome platform. He was running late after trying to fix his translator device. He turned a corner and suddenly bumped into someone. Actually, he bumped into three someones. He tripped forward, arms flailing, and crashed into three alien women. All four of them fell into a round, glowing crystal fountain behind them. Water splashed high. Colorful lights blinked from the fountain's surface. The sound of bells filled the air. "Ah!" one of the women gasped. "Oh no," another whispered. Mason sat up in the shallow water, blinking. His uniform was soaked. "I'm so sorry, I didn't see you. Are you okay?" The three women stood up slowly. They were tall, graceful, and dressed in flowing robes with golden patterns. Their hair shimmered like moonlight, and their eyes had a soft glow. Mason realized with a sinking feeling, these were not normal citizens. They were royalty. The tallest of the three, with sharp eyes and a clever smile, stepped forward. "You touched us in the fountain." Mason stood awkwardly, dripping wet. "Yeah, I didn't mean to. Really, it was an accident." The other two women exchanged glances. One looked amused. The other seemed curious. Just then, a loud voice boomed through the garden. "What has happened here?" A large group of guards in silver armor appeared, followed by a tall, stern alien with a shining crown. His eyes burned with pride and power. Emperor Tharnak Vel. Mason stiffened. He had just made direct physical contact with the Valerian Emperor's daughters. The Emperor looked from the soaked humans to the blinking fountain and back to his daughters. His eyes widened. His expression changed, from shock to realization, then to something else, a grin. "A human?" Tharnak said slowly. "You performed the ritual touch with not one, but all three of my daughters." Mason blinked. "Ritual what?" The Emperor raised his arms. "By galactic law, the ritual is clear. A sacred bond has been formed. You have claimed them as your wives." The three princesses looked surprised but not upset. The tallest one, the clever-eyed one, smirked. "Well, this is going to be interesting." 20 minutes later, Mason sat in a large golden room, wrapped in a dry robe, surrounded by royal guards. His translator buzzed in his ear as an assistant explained the law again. "In Valerian culture," the assistant said, "a public fall into the fountain of union while touching a royal maiden is a proposal. If the maiden accepts by not rejecting the touch, the bond is legally sealed." "I didn't propose," Mason said. "I tripped. Intent does not matter. The bond was witnessed. The fountain responded." Mason put his head in his hands. "Earth Command is going to faint." The doors opened and the three princesses walked in. Mason stood up quickly. "Look, I'm really sorry." The shortest one, with soft eyes and a gentle smile, interrupted. "You don't need to apologize. I'm Myra." "I'm Tekka," said the one with strong arms and a warrior's stance. "And I'm Zarali," said the tallest. "I enjoyed your fall. Very graceful." Mason tried to smile. "Thanks, I think." Zarali stepped closer. "You're not what I expected from a human." "I wasn't expecting an intergalactic wedding today," Mason replied. Myra tilted her head. "You're not angry?" "I'm confused." Tekka crossed her arms. "Do you want to leave?" "Yes," Mason said honestly. Zarali chuckled. "Too bad. Galactic law says otherwise." Later, Mason was given a room in the royal palace. It had everything: soft beds, glowing walls, and a view of the stars. But all Mason could think about was the message he had sent to Earth Command. Accidentally proposed to alien royalty. Please advise. The reply came quickly. Do not offend them. We need this alliance. Play along. Mason groaned. He looked out the window. Below, Valerian ships floated in peaceful formations. But something didn't feel right. Why would the Emperor be so happy about a random human marrying his daughters? Mason didn't like being used. Something was going on. There was a knock at the door. Zorali entered, wearing a silver robe and carrying a small glowing device. Mind if I join? You? She asked. Mason nodded. Sure. What's that? Royal translator upgrade, she said, handing it to him. You'll need it if you're going to be our husband. Mason took it carefully. I still don't understand why you're all okay with this. Zorali sat beside him. We aren't helpless princesses. We chose not to reject the ritual. We're curious about you. Curious enough to marry me? Zorali smiled. Let's call it a cultural experiment. Mason laughed quietly. Great. I'm a science project. There was a long pause. Zorali looked out at the stars. There's more going on here than you know. You'll find out soon. Mason turned to her. Does it have to do with the Emperor's excitement? She didn't answer, but her smile faded, and Mason realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was something bigger. The sunlight filtering through the tall windows of the palace was soft and warm. Captain Mason Reed rubbed his eyes as he sat up on the large bed. The events of the previous day still felt like a dream. He was now officially married, by Galactic, law to 3 alien princesses. His communicator beeped. A message from Earth Command. Maintain cover. Alliance is vital. Do not offend Valerians. Await further instructions. Mason sighed. This was not the diplomatic visit he had imagined. He needed to find a way out, or at least understand what was really going on. The royal summons before Mason could make any plans. A knock came at his door. It was a young Valerian guard, calm but firm. Captain Reed, the Emperor requests your presence in the Royal Council chamber. Mason nodded and followed silently. He had no choice but to obey. The council chamber was vast. Tall crystal pillars reflected soft light, and dozens of Valerian officials sat in seats shaped like giant leaves. At the center, Emperor Tharnak Vel sat on a high throne, his expression unreadable. The Emperor motioned for Mason to approach. You have caused quite a stir, Captain, the Emperor said. You touched my daughters and formed a sacred bond. That bond cannot be broken. Now you will take part in the governance of Valari Prime. Mason swallowed nervously. I am honored, Your Majesty, but I am only here to represent Earth. I don't know Valerian law or customs well enough. The Emperor smiled. That is why you are here. To learn. And to help. The daughters offer. After the council, Mason was escorted to a tea room where the 3 princesses waited for him. Zarali was already pouring tea from a glowing silver pot. The liquid inside changed color as it poured, soft blue to bright purple. Myra, Zarali said, would you remind Captain Reed of our offer? Myra smiled warmly. We want to teach you about our culture, our technology, and our history. You will stay with us and learn. In return, you will help us with your unique human perspective. Tekka, sitting across the room, nodded. You will also protect us as our husband. Mason raised an eyebrow. Protect you? I'm not a soldier. Tekka grinned. You will learn. Mason felt overwhelmed but also curious. These princesses were not the usual royal figures he imagined. They were strong, smart, and clearly capable. First lessons, logic and culture. Over the next days, Mason spent his time with each princess learning different parts of Valerian life. Zarali challenged him to puzzles and strategy games, testing his thinking and creativity. They spent hours discussing how their planets had grown and changed. Zarali admired human flexibility and creativity, something Valerians valued highly but had less of in their own strict culture. Myra, Mason said one afternoon, Why didn't you reject the ritual? Myra smiled softly. Because I believe this accident might be a chance to learn something new, and perhaps to change old ways. She took Mason to the palace garden, where plants sang in soft harmonies. This garden is a symbol of peace, Myra explained, just as you and I may grow a new kind of friendship. Tekka was different. She took Mason to the training grounds. There, they sparred lightly with energy sticks. Mason was clumsy, but determined. You must be brave to face new challenges, Tekka said. This is just the start. Secret conversations one evening. Mason sat with Zarali in a quiet library filled with ancient scrolls and holographic screens. There's more happening here than the Emperor says, Zarali whispered. Mason leaned forward. What do you mean? Zarali looked out the window at the stars. The galaxy is not safe. Our empire faces a threat, the Zor Dominion. They want to control Valari Prime and expand. Mason frowned. Earth knows about this? Not yet, Zarali said. That is why the Emperor arranged this marriage, to bind Earth to us. Mason felt his heart sink. He had walked into a political trap. Do you trust me? Zarali asked. I want to, Mason said honestly. Then you must. Learn everything you can. Our people, our strengths, our secrets, escape plans. That night, Mason sat alone in his room, thinking hard. He was trapped in this palace. His only hope was to find a way to send messages back to Earth and ask for help. He tried to use the palace's communication system, but it was heavily guarded. Frustrated, Mason scribbled a plan on a holopad. Find the hidden communication room. Send a secret message. Wait for Earth's response. He knew it wouldn't be easy. Unexpected visitors. Before Mason could act, there was a soft knock on the door. It was Myra and Tekka. We want to help, Myra said simply. Tekka nodded. We do not want you to be a prisoner. Mason was surprised but grateful. Together, the four of them sneaked through secret corridors, avoiding guards and security drones. They found a small room filled with strange devices and blinking lights. This is the communication hub, Zarali said as she joined them quietly. Mason quickly accessed the systems and prepared a message for Earth. A message sent. Earth command, Mason whispered as he typed. This is Captain Mason Reed on Valari Prime. I am under galactic law as husband to 3 Valarian princesses. The Emperor seeks an alliance against the Zor Dominion. Please advise. He hit send and held his breath. The system hummed quietly. The message had left Valari Prime, a new understanding. The next day, Mason met with the Emperor again. This time, the atmosphere was less tense. The Emperor smiled warmly. You are learning fast, Captain. The princesses tell me you are a quick study. Mason bowed his head. I am trying my best, Your Majesty. Tharnak's gaze was sharp. Good, because soon you will face greater challenges. Mason looked at the 3 princesses standing behind the Emperor. They smiled at him. Not as captors, but as allies. Mason thought of Earth so far away. He was no longer just a visitor. He was part of Valari Prime's future. The message Captain Mason Reed sent from Valari Prime reached Earth Command quickly. The scientists and leaders there watched the data carefully. The peaceful Valarian world was about to face a dangerous enemy, the Zor Dominion, a ruthless empire that wanted to take over Valari and Earth. Back on Valari Prime, the sky had begun to darken. Strange ships appeared on the horizon, sleek and black like sharp blades. Mason stood with the 3 princesses on the balcony of the royal palace, looking out at the approaching fleet. The air was heavy with worry, a dangerous visitor. That evening, Emperor Tharnak Vel called Mason to a private meeting in his chambers. Mason stepped inside the room, filled with glowing maps and holograms of star systems. Captain Reed, the Emperor said, his voice low but serious. The Zor Dominion threatens not only my planet but the entire galaxy. Mason nodded. Earth received my message. They want to help. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Good, but there is more you must understand. This alliance is not just about defense. It is about survival and trust. Mason leaned forward. Tell me. Tharnak gestured to the hologram. The Zor Dominion's power grows every day. They control many systems through fear and force. Valari Prime is one of the last free worlds. If we fall, the Zor will attack Earth next. Mason's heart raced. Then we must prepare. How can I help? The Emperor's face softened. By standing with us. As husband to my daughters, you are part of this family and our fight. Learning the strengths. The three princesses led Mason to a secret room deep inside the palace. The walls were lined with strange machines and glowing screens. This is our war room, Zarali explained. Here we plan our defense and build new technology. Tekka pointed to a star chart. The Zor ships are powerful, but their technology has weaknesses. Myra added, if we combine your Earth technology with ours, we can create a fleet strong enough to stop them. Mason studied the charts and the machines. His mind raced with ideas. Let's start with a new shield design, he said. Something that uses both our energy sources. The princesses smiled. They liked his ideas. A secret project for days, Mason worked with the princesses and Valerian scientists. They created a hybrid shield that could protect entire planets and fleets. Mason was amazed by Valari technology but also proud of Earth's inventions. Zarali teased him. You're better at this than you thought. Mason laughed. I'm learning from the best. Myra prepared meals and stories from her world. Tekka trained Mason every morning, making sure he was ready if the battle came soon. Slowly, Mason felt more confident. He was no longer just a visitor. He was a leader. The Zor fleet arrives one morning, alarms blared across Valari Prime. The Zor Dominion fleet had reached the edge of the system. Mason stood with the Emperor and the princesses on the command deck. This is it, Tharnak said. We must protect our home. The Valerian ships rose, shining with new shields powered by Mason's hybrid design. Earth sent reinforcements, ships filled with soldiers and scientists ready to fight. The two fleets moved closer. Silence fell over the palace as everyone waited. Then the first Zor ship fired a beam of dark energy toward Valari Prime. Battle begins. The Valerian shields glowed brighter, absorbing the attack. Mason watched the battle unfold like a chess game in space. Xor ships moved fast, but Valerian and Earth fleets fought back with smart tactics and teamwork. Mason called out orders, working with Tekka, who commanded the ground defense forces, Myra, who handled diplomacy to keep the nearby systems calm, and Zarali, who controlled the technology systems. During the fight, Mason noticed a pattern in the Zor attacks, a weakness in their energy flow. Focus on the power cores. Mason shouted to the fleet commanders. Valerian ships adjusted their weapons and fired precisely. One by one, Zor ships started to retreat. A close call. Suddenly, a large Xor ship broke through the shield line and headed toward the palace. Mason and Zarali jumped into a small fighter craft to stop it. The chase was intense, with energy blast all around. Mason's pilot skills surprised Zarali. We make a good team, she said. Mason smiled but focused. They managed to disable the Xor ship just before it reached the palace. A new threat. The battle was won, but not over. Back at the palace, scientists reported a new danger. The Xor launched a virus, Myra said, her face pale. It attacks Valerian biology, weakening our people. Mason frowned. Can Earth help? We are testing cures, Zarali said. But the virus is fast? Mason's mind raced. Humans are immune, right? Yes, Myra nodded. You might hold the key. The virus was spreading quickly. Hope and determination. Mason worked with Myra and the scientists to find a cure. They combined Earth medicine with Valerian energy healing. Slowly, the infected Valerians began to recover. The virus was stopped. The threat was not gone, but hope returned. A new bond. That night, Mason stood with the princesses on the palace balcony. You saved us. Tekka said simply. Mason looked at the stars. We saved each other. Zarali smiled. You are more than just a husband now. Myra nodded. You are part of our family, our future. Mason felt proud but humble. He was far from home, but he had a new purpose. The calm after the battle was brief. The people of Valari Prime celebrated their victory, but the threat of the Zor Dominion hung like a dark cloud over the galaxy. Captain Mason Reed stood on the palace balcony, watching the stars shimmer against the night sky. His mind was heavy with thoughts about what lay ahead, the weight of command. The next morning, Mason was summoned to a grand meeting with the Emperor and his advisors. The large room buzzed with tension. Scientists, military leaders, and diplomats filled the space. The Emperor's gaze was steady. Captain Reed, the Emperor began, you have shown courage and wisdom, but now the galaxy watches you. You will lead the new hybrid fleet, a combination of Earth and Valerian forces. Mason felt the weight of responsibility press on him. I am honored, Your Majesty, but I am not a Valerian. I do not know your ways fully. The Emperor smiled. That is why you will learn quickly. Leadership is not about race or species, it is about heart and mind. The princess's support later that day, Mason met with the 3 princesses in the royal gardens. They stood close, their faces calm but determined. You are not alone, Zarali said. We will stand with you. Tekka added. We fight as one. Myra smiled gently. Your strength is ours. Mason felt their support deeply. He was no longer just a visitor or an accidental husband. He was part of this family, and their fight for survival. Preparing the fleet days passed in a blur of training, meetings, and planning. Mason worked with scientists to improve the hybrid shields and weapons. He trained pilots, coordinated strategy, and learned Valerian customs. The fleet was ready, but Mason knew this was only the beginning. One evening, as he practiced maneuvers, in the simulation room, Zarali approached. You have changed since you arrived, she said softly. Mason paused. I hope for the better. She smiled. You are brave and kind, that is rare. The Zor strike. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the palace. The Zor Dominion had launched a surprise attack on Valari Prime's outer colonies. Mason and the princesses rushed to the command center. The screen showed dark ships firing on small settlements. Protect the colonies at all costs, Mason ordered. The hybrid fleet moved swiftly, engaging the Zor ships in fierce battles above the planets. Mason directed. The forces with calm and clear commands, the princesses led teams on the ground, helping evacuate civilians and organize defenses. The fight was hard, but the enemy was pushed back. The cost of war. After the battle, Mason walked through the damaged colonies with Tekka and Myra. Buildings were broken and fields were burned, but the people's spirit was strong. We will rebuild, Tekka said firmly. Myra added, the war has cost us much, but it has also brought us closer. Mason nodded. I will do everything to protect you. The bond between them grew stronger. A secret meeting. One night, Mason received a secret message from an unknown source. It instructed him to meet at a hidden location in the palace. Curious and cautious, Mason went alone. In a dimly lit chamber, he found a Valerian elder named Soren. Soren? Mason asked. The elder nodded. I have watched your progress. You are different, strong and honest. Soren explained that the Valerian Council was divided. Some wanted peace at any cost, others wanted war. The Emperor needed Mason's help to unite them. Will you help me? The elder asked. Mason agreed. The trial of trust. The next day, Mason faced the Valerian Council. Leaders from many worlds gathered to discuss the future. Some members doubted Mason because he was human and new to their ways. You are a stranger, one counselor said. How can we trust you? Mason took a deep breath. I am not Valerian by birth, but I am Valerian by choice. I fight to protect your people, because we share a future. He told stories of Earth's struggles and hopes. Slowly, The council's mood changed. By the end, most members supported the alliance, growing closer. That evening, Mason returned to the palace gardens where the princesses waited. "You did well," Myra said, smiling. Tekka added, "You earned their trust." Zarali reached out and took Mason's hand. "You belong here." Mason felt a warm glow inside. He was no longer a stranger. He was part of this world, a new threat. Looms just as hope returned. Scouts reported a new fleet approaching Valari space, larger and more powerful than before. The Zor Dominion was not giving up. The Emperor gathered his forces. Mason stood ready, alongside the princesses. The battle for Valari Prime and for the future of two worlds was about to begin. The dark fleet of the Zor Dominion loomed larger each day, casting long shadows over the peaceful stars near Valari Prime. Captain Mason Reed stood with the three princesses and Emperor Tharnak in the palace command center. The time for talks and plans was ending. The time for battle was near. Preparing for battle, Mason looked at the hybrid fleet through the large window. Valerian and Earth ships floated side by side, their shields glowing softly in the dark space. He felt the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. Not just for himself, but for the safety of two worlds, Earth and Valari Prime. "We must be ready," Mason said to the Emperor. "Our strength is in unity." Tharnak nodded. "You have grown into a true leader, Captain." Zarali, Myra, and Tekka stood close by. The princesses were calm, but their eyes held the fire of warriors. Mason had trained with them, fought beside them, and learned from them. Now, they were family. The calm. Before the storm. The night before the battle, Mason walked in the palace, gardens with the princesses. The glowing plants lit their path softly. "I was afraid when I first arrived," Mason said quietly. "I did not know what to expect." Myra smiled. "We all were afraid." Tekka looked up at the stars, but fear can make us stronger. Zarali took Mason's hand. "Together, we are stronger than any enemy." Mason felt hope in their words. For the first time, he truly believed they could win. The battle begins at dawn. The hybrid fleet moved out to meet the Zor Dominion. The sky was alive with ships flying fast, lasers flashing and energy shields glowing. Mason stood on the command bridge directing the fleet. His voice was steady, clear, and strong. "Hold the line. Protect the colonies. Focus on their flagships." The battle was fierce. The Zor ships were powerful and ruthless. They fired with dark energy beams that could cut through the strongest shields. But the Valerian Earth Alliance fought with skill and courage. Mason's hybrid shields absorbed many attacks, and his pilots executed smart moves to outflank the enemy. A dangerous mission. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. An enemy squadron broke through and headed straight for the palace. Mason grabbed a fighter and flew to intercept them. The princesses watched anxiously from the command center. The chase was fast and tense. Mason's fighter dodged beams and blasts as he followed the enemy leader. With careful aim, Mason fired a powerful shot that disabled the enemy ship. The rest retreated. He returned to the palace, breathless but victorious. The heart of the fight back in the command room, Mason saw the Zor Dominion's leader appear on the main screen, a tall, fierce figure with cold eyes. "You are brave, Captain Reed," the leader said. "But this battle will end in your defeat." Mason met his gaze. "We fight for freedom. We will never give up." The Zor leader smiled cruelly. "Then prepare to lose everything. United, we stand." The battle continued for hours. Both sides lost ships, but the hybrid fleet's teamwork and new technology made a difference. Mason worked closely with Zarali, Myra, and Tekka to coordinate attacks and defenses. They moved like a well-practiced team, trusting each other completely. In one moment, the princesses led a ground mission to secure a key energy station on Valari Prime. Mason stayed in space, protecting the fleet. When the princesses returned, safely, Mason felt proud. They were strong and brave. The turning point. Just as the battle seemed endless, Mason spotted a weakness in the Exor leader's flagship. "Target their power core," Mason commanded. The fleet focused their fire. The flagship shuddered and exploded in a bright flash. Without their leader, the Zor ship started to lose hope. They began to retreat. Peace at last. With the enemy gone, the hybrid fleet returned to Valari Prime. The people cheered for their heroes. In the palace, Emperor Tharnak held a ceremony to honor Mason and the princesses. "You have saved Valari Prime," the Emperor said, "and forged a bond between our worlds that will last forever." Mason looked at Zarali, Myra, and Tekka. "Together we are stronger." The princesses smiled, their eyes full of hope for the future. A new beginning. Months later, Mason stood on Earth, speaking to leaders from both worlds. "The future belongs to those who work together," Mason said. "Our bond is proof that friendship and courage can overcome any challenge." The princesses stood beside him, ambassadors of Valari Prime. Mason knew his journey was far from over, but he was ready for whatever came next. Because now, he was not just a captain or a husband, he was a symbol of hope for two worlds united. The end.